million people from around the world visit George Washington's Mount Vernon every year, walking the halls our first president walked, seeing how he and his household lived.
The beloved farm and homestead of the man who literally led a revolution that changed the course of the Western world. But as our Rebecca Turco explains, there was a time when the estate's future was very much in doubt.
Along the banks of the Potomac sits Mount Vernon, George Washington's historic home, tucked away amid hundreds of acres of untouched land. But it may not be standing today if not for this woman, Anne Pamela Cunningham.
She advanced the work of Women's Patriotic Society, really empowering women from all around the country to undertake this great cause.
It was 5 decades after Washington died. His mansion, the outbuildings, gardens and grounds had seen better days.
The Washington family could no longer afford to keep up the estate. The piazza was being held up by ship's masts. It was really in a terrible state of disarray.
The federal government wouldn't help preserve it, neither would the Commonwealth. But Cunningham's mother, who saw the property while traveling along the Potomac River, could not abide Mount Vernon's state of decay.
So she wrote to her daughter, and she said, I have seen the state of Mount Vernon, and if the men of America cannot come to the aid of George Washington, perhaps the women of America can. And her daughter responded with an absolute yes, and that was the beginning of the Mount Vernon Ladies Association.
Cunningham galvanized a group of determined women nationwide, and their work was cut out for them.
It is a radical undertaking because you think at this time women could not vote, they could not own property in their own right.
On top of that, they needed Washington's great-grandnephew on board.
So she did go to the current owner, John Augustine Washington, and offered the ladies as the answer to his problems. And his initial reaction was no.
Then they had to raise $200,000. That would be $5.7 million today.
There had never really been an organization that was going to accept charitable donations, which was necessary in order to save Mount Vernon.
The ladies pulled it off, raising the funds and paying off the estate 2 years ahead of schedule.
So 1858, they raised the funds. 1860, they open the mansion. And then, of course, the Civil War comes. And so, frankly, at that point, their efforts end. But what does not end is their commitment to keeping Mount Vernon open for the American people.
They had a vision to preserve Washington's home as it was known to him. And with that, it meant the landscapes, the buildings, the places where the enslaved community worked, all of that as a piece.
An open estate for a divided nation.
It was a rule that soldiers from North and South could come to pay homage to George Washington so long as they laid down their arms. And there were blankets that were used to cover their uniforms.
The Ladies Association safeguarded the mansion during the war. Then about 10 years later, Cunningham stepped down, saying in her farewell address,
"Ladies, the home of Washington is in your charge. See to it that you keep it the home of Washington."
And more than 150 years later, that's how it's been kept. Thanks to Cunningham, the ladies who served beside her, and everyone since, all the way down to Dee Dee Neal Petri, who leads the Ladies Association now.
It's been a bit of a sleuthing exercise and continues to be as we look for pieces to bring back to Mount Vernon.
Mount Vernon in the 18th century comprised 8,000 acres, and the majority of that is now suburban housing, right? That's probably what this 450 acres would have been if it hadn't been for the ladies.
The work to preserve never stops.
We're finding like broken pieces of glass, corroded nails. Sometimes we find like small artifacts.
A years-long revitalization project is almost done, restoring the mansion to be as historically accurate as possible. And a new education center will help bring this history to life for generations to come.
It's our privilege to be able to educate those who come to visit and those who come to visit virtually about this great man and his legacy.
At Mount Vernon, Rebecca Turco, 7 News.